Welcome to Talk About It, where we discuss any and all aspects of wellness to help you live your best life. For those of you new to Talk About It, I am your host, Stephanie Powell, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have with us Gallup certified strengths coach, Dr. LaShante Walker, who is president and founder of Walker Vision Consulting. Let me tell you a little bit about Walker Vision. They provide leadership consulting services to businesses, organizations, and educational institutions. Dr. Walker is a seasoned leader with more than 20 years of experience in education, leadership development, and strategic planning. Suffice it to say that Dr. Walker wears many hats, and she wears them very well, as she's also a mother, an executive coach, and a preacher, all of which combine to provide a rich experience when Dr. Walker is working with you. And for the remainder of this hour, we have Dr. Walker here to provide us with great insight into the topic of creating a strengths-based life. Dr. LaShante Walker, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, and for that beautiful introduction. I'm excited to be on the Talk About It program and looking forward to the conversation with you tonight, Stephanie.
Excellent, excellent. So, how are you? For those who didn't hear our lovely banter at the top of the hour, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. The sun is back out, I guess, for the remainder of the evening. It was rainy here today, but now the weather is back beautiful, and it's a great day.
Oh, wonderful. Well, similar here in the DMV, it looked like we were getting a little sprinkle, but the sun made its way out, and it's a lovely day. So are you ready to talk about it?
I'm ready to talk about it.
Ready to talk about creating a strengths-based life. First of all, Dr. Walker, for our viewers, please tell us generally, who is this discussion for, this topic? Who's it for?
This discussion is for everyone. Anyone who is looking to enhance their life, whether it's their professional life, their personal life, every aspect of your life can be enhanced when you know the areas where you are strong. And when you know how to produce results, good results, over and over again. And that's the whole purpose of knowing your strengths and knowing how to leverage your strengths. And that's one of the things that I do is I teach individuals how to live a strengths-based life by making sure that they hone in on this, on their strengths. Because I want to be careful not to call them skills. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it is looking at your natural talents, but enhancing that a little bit more by tapping into the areas where you're the strongest and then leaning on those, not trying to fix the things where you're weak or you feel like you don't do as well in those particular areas, but looking at your top 5 strengths, sometimes your top 10 strengths, dialing those up and leveraging those to a way where you can ensure that you have a strength-filled life. You can live strong every single day in every aspect of your life.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, there was so much just in that. Boy, you got us going right within the first few minutes. Key things, really leveraging those strengths and doing that in a repeatable fashion.
Right.
Over and over, I'm hearing consistency is the key to living a strengths-based life. I see so many different careers and people with various certifications, and as we mentioned in your introduction, you're a certified strengths coach. What motivated you to become a certified strengths coach? Well, I'm just curious. How does that happen?
The first time I ever took the strengths assessment, it's produced through Gallup, was when I was entering my doctoral program, and I think that was in 2013. And we did the assessment, and I've always loved strengths, and we learned about, just the whole concept of strengths-based assessment and what that does, how you can live in a place of knowing what's your top 5. And looking at other people, entrepreneurs, business leaders who have operated out of their top 5 and done some phenomenal things. And so whenever I finished my doctoral program and began to teach classes with college students, I would always make them take the strengths assessment, because I was like, if you're going to be in a leadership role, you need to know the areas of your strength. And so one day I was at a conference looking for additional material to add to my courses. And one of the consultants through Gallup said, you know, you can become certified to coach. And I was like, okay, tell me more.
Yeah.
I want to know more about this. And so I started this journey to learn how to become certified in this area. And it was a process. You know, I went through the training, the certification, 6 months of coaching people, taking that, you know, so it was a process, but it was worthwhile. And not only was I able to introduce the strengths assessment and strengths-based living to college students, I began working with faculty members, staff members, and branching out into the community, working with business leaders, entrepreneurs on how to, you know, live a strength-filled life.
Mm-hmm. And so why 5? I heard you mention top 5. Why not your top 1 strength or 2 or 3 strengths? Why 5?
Well, they are numbered. So I do, like, for example, and I'll share this some more, my number 1 strength is input. And so I can see that operating every single day of every minute. I'm reading constantly. I'm taking in a lot of information, and I also like to give a lot of information. So I find myself talking a lot sometimes. And because as much as I take in information, I want to give it out to make sure people are informed. So you do see how you may lean on 1 or 2 more, but the top 5 are typically the ones that you express every single day.
Okay.
And so that's why we look at the top 5. My top 5 are input, achiever, strategic, learner, and maximizer. Okay. So just a brief overview: input, I'm taking in the information. Achiever, I want to meet goals, so I do checklists. I love to check off a box each day. Strategic, I like to cut through the trees, you know, to get to the place in the forest where I want to go. So I'm cutting a path through it. And then learner, I'm constantly learning about what's going on, what people need. Learner is unique because I always say, for me, I use learner or leverage learner to compensate for the areas that I may not be at the top. It may be my number 34. I'm not trying to fix my number 34. My number 34 is empathy, right?
Okay.
I'm in ministry. I'm a preacher. I need it. So I leverage learner to learn how to be empathetic towards the needs of people, although it doesn't come natural to me. But learner is unique in that way. And then maximizer, I want to see people get to their full potential. So that's my overview of my top 5 in a nutshell. And I use them every day.
Very good. So interesting. I'll share my top 5 a little later in our discussion, but we do have one in common. I'll give you one. I have maximizer in my top 5. In fact, that's my number 1.
Oh, wow.
Maximizer. Okay. So, you know, we talked about, you know, you alluded to kind of explaining strengths versus weakness. Doesn't sound like they're one and the same. What exactly is a strength, as we kind of provide a framework for our discussion?
So if you
on a strength,
look at it,
what's a strength? That's
a great question. So if you want the textbook, you know, definition, I can give that to you real quick. Right? So the textbook definition is the ability to consistently produce a positive outcome through near perfect performance in a specific task, to finish with strength and start with talent. And so that's really where the starting place for strength is, knowing your talents. These are areas that you're naturally good at. I've always been in the top reading group. When I was in 1st grade, when we first started reading, I was in the top reading group. Right. So it naturally shows up. So input is right there, number 1. High achiever, want to win awards, very competitive, all of those things. So those are natural skills, like natural talents. Things that come to you naturally, that you see routinely over and over again. And so that's what makes it unique. And so you start with talent, but you end with strength, because the whole purpose of knowing your strengths is to really enhance. That's my key word. Enhance the areas that you are good in and performing at a higher level, which is why I want us to look at it as strength is your balcony and weakness is your basement.
Okay.
With strengths living and strengths learning, we're not in the habit of basement fixing. We're not trying to fix the stuff in the basement. We're trying to live in the balcony so you can leverage what's in the balcony and live stronger.
I like that, living in the balcony.
Yeah.
Not trying to fix what's in the basement. Oh, I like that. That's going to stick with me. You know, and in that definition, I heard that consistency,
right,
is key. Why do you think when we go on these job interviews, we always get that question? You know, tell us your weaknesses. What do you think is the intent of companies when they're asking people that question?
You know, I just think that is a natural question for people to ask. You know, what are some areas? And I think that the way people are looking at it is, what are some areas where you need improvement? Okay. Right? I don't think people they just maybe, you know, kind of couch the question in a different way or a not so good way. But I just think they want to know some areas that stand out when they're looking for your areas of strength, where the areas that you perform the best in. And they also want to know, will you tell the truth about the areas of improvement? And true story, I was at a job interview at my alma mater, Arkansas State University. I worked in the cashier's window years and years ago when campuses still had cashier's window. Right. And they asked me what my weakness is. And I said, I'll tell you that I don't have one because I'm a perfectionist. And I got the job because, I mean, I'm a perfectionist. Yes. That's one of my, I mean, if you want to say it's a weakness, is because I will work myself, you know, to the bone, being a high achiever. And so not even recognizing when I need to rest, take a break, things like that. So I was like, that's my weakness. I'm a perfectionist. Yes.
And they didn't challenge it clearly. They hired you.
Job.
Yes. So moving on to strengths-based living. Yeah. What are, you know, some of the benefits of living this kind of life and if we can deal with it from an individual perspective, the benefits to families, the benefits to organizations and communities. Okay. What are some of the benefits to those various groups of having a strengths-based approach? So for me, the individual, for my family, how can that benefit my family? Organizations with which I'm affiliated, what are some of the benefits in those respects?
Right. So if I can do the professional first, some of the benefits are you like going to work if you know your strengths. Because, you know, there's a statistic that says 1 in 4 people, only 1 out of 4 people can truly say or strongly agree that at work they get the opportunity to do what they love doing or that they do best every day.
1 in 4?
Only 1 in 4. Wow. And so by understanding your strengths and what you do best, you'll most likely be in a position to go after jobs, work on projects that you enjoy, that you love, and you do well. And a lot of times people are in professions, they're on projects, they're on teams, they're in areas that are not beneficial because they don't really know where their strength lies, right? So that's one of the benefits. You'll look forward to going to work. You'll have a more positive, attitude, positive interactions with other people. When you know your strengths, like we can spout off our strengths. Yeah. We're happy. We're excited about it because you know the areas where you thrive. Right. And that's a major benefit. And that's across the boards. That's in your professional life. That's in your personal life. That's with your family and friends. When you know, like all of my friends know I'm that maximizer. Right?
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So they know the area where that you can tap in and you can help them out, and you want to help them meet their goal. And so because of that, you find some joy, you find gratification in that, and you're able to live life out loud where you're living on top in that balcony area because you know what you're doing. So to me, that's the benefit, because you love what you do every single day.
Yes. Yes. And there's such and you feel like you're living life on purpose. You
Right.
feel like you are doing what you are destined to do when you are leveraging those strengths and using those top 5 on a daily basis. It's so rewarding for yourself and for those associated with you. And I like the analogy of having your friends knowing your strengths and being able to tap in, knowing what they can get from Dr. Walker, or to them probably LaShante. So
I assess my friends if they've taken the strengths assessment. I have it. I keep it near me. So when we're on the phone, I'm like, okay, so this is, maximizer coming out in you. This is strategic coming out in you. And so I do, with that, my children, I have adult children. They both have taken the strengths assessment. It's just helpful to know. They know what areas I'm working in that particular strength, and I know where they're coming from.
And that's interesting. Can you share, if you will, just from a parenting perspective, just knowing your children's strengths, how has that affected your parenting style with your children?
Well, I'm more mindful. I'm intentional about how I address certain issues, especially. I know for me, I know what strength I need to dial up and what strength I need to dial back. And that's important. I talk about that a lot when I'm coaching individuals, is how to dial up and how to dial back. Oftentimes, in the position of parenting adults, I have to really dial up learner. They don't need all of the statistics about college life. They don't need all of my knowledge about how financial aid operates, how, admissions. They didn't need any of that. They needed mommy to be the learner, to understand how to make the transition from having children who were in the K through 12 system to having adult children who are just experiencing life as college students. So that helps train me as a parent.
Yes. Excellent. Why don't they, or maybe they do? Let me ask you, is this something that is commonly taught, let's say at the elementary school level, or let's even go up to high school? Is that something that's common? I would imagine that some schools might be doing it at that level, but have you heard of, because I can tell you, it's certainly not something I learned in school. Focusing on your strengths. It was just this straight curriculum. Everyone had to follow it, and there was very little individualism in that.
Right. There are some school districts who introduce strengths, the whole concept of them. There also is assessments available for 12 to 17-year-olds, for teenagers, if they would like to take them. Now, in terms of the statistics on how many schools utilize them, I'm not sure. However, I do see a lot of college communities, a lot of colleges and universities do provide the assessments, especially with the whole freshman seminar design. So I've actually had the opportunity to work with some colleges that are attempting to become a strength-based institution. The institution where I worked formerly as a college administrator, we were introducing strengths-based life and strengths-based assessments to the incoming freshmen as well. And so it is more prevalent, to my knowledge, in college settings than K-12.
Excellent. I think it should be mandatory as part of freshman orientation or the freshman year experience. That should be the first thing, because there's some people, even after they've gotten accepted and they've started college, they don't know they're undecided. They don't know what they're going to major in. And so I think doing a strengths-based assessment can really help get people on their path. Who are some of the key influencers that people encounter throughout their lifetime who can encourage. Not everybody has a mom like your children do, who's a certified strengths coach who can just pull it out and say, here, take this strengths assessment.
Right.
But who are some people who are key influencers just generally for the average person throughout one's lifetime who can encourage or should encourage besides parents?
Right.
Strength-based living.
Yeah, I think it would be great, especially looking at, a mental health, as it is, like mental health professionals could, help some students, because I know, especially on college campuses, there are mental health services available. Also, teachers, professors, academic advisors would be a key person to offer this, to suggest this as an opportunity for people to hone in on their strengths. Also, just community leaders. I think everybody should take the strengths assessment, but especially if you're doing some type of outreach program where you're working with youth, it will be great to introduce the concept of strengths with students. It could be a part of the programmatic structure that they utilize within the community-based model, because it is really life-changing when people understand their areas of strength, where I'm strong, where I thrive, how to enhance my natural talents. When people know that, like I tell people to put it in a picture frame, put it on your phone screensaver.
Put top five. Put your top five in a frame.
Top five. Right. So you
strength.
can see it every single day, and it's affirmation. So you'll know I'm strong in this area. I'm a learner. All of those things. It just helps that constant affirmation of your strengths.
You know what? I'm going to do that because talk about it, viewers. I took the strengths assessment. It's been a while though, but I was really surprised. I was surprised at how accurate the results were. I looked at the list and I said, boy, and it was just interesting how just answering questions in the assessment and how they were able, I felt like, wow, whoever designed this, they really knew how to drill down and get to the heart of who the person is.
Right.
So I was really amazed by that. I took the Strengths Finders assessment it's been a while, back in 2015.
Okay.
And so I mentioned to you, my number one is Maximizer. I'll run through the others. Maximizer, then Positivity, Developer, Futuristic, and Connectedness.
Okay.
So those are my top five. And as you mentioned, your input, achiever, strategic, learner, and maximizer. What are some of the most common strengths? And I don't know if the ones in my top five or your top five are the most common, but what are some of the most common strengths, and please explain them. And I know you explained briefly your five, what those meant.
Right.
But what are some of the most common? Are any of mine common?
Well,
Positivity, developer, futuristic, and connectedness. Or am I kind of unique?
That's a difficult one, to answer, because it's by generation. Like achiever is a top one based on generation. And yeah, so it just depends on what generation you fall into. So I don't want to put anybody's strength out there to say, well, this one is the most common or this one is an outlier, because then some people start to question, do I need that strength? What's wrong with me, if I don't have that strength? So I like the way Gallup does it, that talks about these, when people respond or get their feedback, they typically, because of their generation, they have achiever. So for example, like baby boomers, Gen Xers, achiever is going to be at the top because that was like a part of the culture.
Right.
So you have this natural inclination towards achieving goals.
Yeah.
But
and they're at that stage in life too, where they're in that proving ground. They have to show and prove.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
that's a part of the culture. Like it was, testing, like achieving goals based on your test assessment or outcome was introduced during this time, getting into college, learning those things. Whereas now you will see strengths for younger generations, more like futuristic and, others that are maybe developed or maximizer, because you're looking at a lot of people who are entrepreneurs who are not so fixed on or fixated with achieving goals or checking boxes, but having the full experience. And so I don't want anybody to pin me down. I don't have the full statistical chart in front of me, but achiever is one by generation that typically is well known or common.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit, Dr. Walker, about the assessment. I mean, we've talked about it, that it exists, that I've taken it, you've taken it,
Right.
distributed it to others. Tell us about the structure of it and what people can expect from taking. And you mentioned Gallup. That's who is kind of the host for strengths assessment.
It is. It is. And so it is a psychologically based or designed, it's based on scientific research. And so it's not just your run of the mill assessment. And that's why I like it so much, because of the scientific information tied to it. It is a psychologically based test and assessment, not test, because some people get scared by the word test, but assessment. And so Gallup, if you've ever heard of Gallup research and the work that they do, we receive a lot of survey information from them, but they also produce this assessment and a lot of resources tied to strengths-based living. And so when you take the assessment, you can take the one that unlocks all 34 of your strengths, the order, or you can do the shorter version where it's just the top 5. A lot of teams and organizations, they typically opt to have their employees take the assessment where you just learn your top 5. And then, but when I work with individuals, they want to know all of them. I want to know where everything falls. And when I'm working with individuals, they understand that your top 5 is something that shows up every single day of your life, but your top 10 are active as well. So I talk to them about 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 as supporting strengths.
Okay.
How does that assist you? How do you leverage those as well? How can you dial those up to help support your top 5? So when you take the assessment, sometimes when I say it'll take you about 30 to 45 minutes to take it, people are like, oh my goodness. But I promise you, once they get into it, they love it.
Yeah.
And when people receive their results, they're like, it is spot on. And I've had, therapists, professors who teach psychology, who have taken many other assessments. I won't name them, but other, like psychologically based assessments. However, they have stated to me that this one seems to be the most accurate or spot on in terms of how they receive or respond to their results. Yeah. And so there's a process that we go through with when people learn their top 5, and it's called name it, claim it, and aim it.
I like that.
Name,
repeat that. Name it.
Yeah. Name it, claim it, aim it.
And aim it. Yes.
So once you name your strengths, you take the strengths assessment, you learn what your top 5 is, or you learn whatever the order is. And then I ask people, what do you think about it? How do you feel? And most people, 9 times out of 10, for me, based on my experience, people are like, that was pretty spot on. Like, it just helped me understand more about how I respond in certain situations. And so once they feel like it resonates with who they are and the work that they do and how they live daily, I say, you've made it to the claim it stage. You've claimed these your top 5. Once they work through the process of claiming them, then I can work with individuals and teams to aim it. What are you leaning towards? It's going back to when you mentioned it seems like you live in purpose when you know what you're doing, when you know where you're going, when you know the areas that you're strong in, and you can reach your goals by aiming your strengths, leveraging them in a positive way to get great results every single time.
Yes. Excellent. So how young should we start in terms of understanding what our foundation or our top five? How young should we start in terms of having that level of
You
self-awareness?
know, I think it should be as young as possible. When if children can learn how to learn the words to songs, they can learn their alphabets, they can learn I'm strong. You know,
Mhm.
I'm smart. I am a good reader. I am a good learner. So those are things they may not know exactly that it's related to a particular area of strength, but it can be a place where this child can be affirmed in this area. And so then I'm hopeful by the time they reach that age period of being 12 to 17 that they'll take the strengths assessment. I've worked with teenagers, I've worked with college students, I've worked with, you know, adults of all ages, and it's just great as early as possible to have this awareness. To me, in my opinion, is a great thing.
So how old were your children when you had them do the assessment?
My
Around.
oldest was 15, but I waited for until my youngest was getting ready to start her freshman year of college, and we took the strength assessment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what are some of the testimonials? I mean, it sounds like you talked with a wide array of people from various age groups. What are some of the testimonials that you've heard after they've gone through the strengths coaching? What are they telling you?
Well, you know, I think the most common one is learning that they appreciate learning how to dial up and dial back their strengths. Because I really talk about this a lot in my coaching sessions. I think it's important for people to understand how to dial something up. And when I mean dial this up, I'm thinking about if I know I need to meet a goal, I don't, that's not time for me to just be reading a lot of information. No, I need to get moving, chart out a strategy, you know, make my checklist and achieve those goals. So I need to dial back on the input. I've already taken in enough information and I need to start goal setting. I need to achieve goals. I don't need to go to, you know, all of these conferences and keep this information and not have any action items, right?
Right.
And so to me, that's an example of dialing something back and dialing another strength up. Or it may be time for me to just sit down, like I was talking about with parenting. I don't need to give them a lot of information from my input strengths, but I do need to learn from them what they need so I can course correct and change direction and do parenting more efficiently. And so I think that's the number one testimonial that I've received from people is they appreciate knowing how to dial up and how to dial back.
Yes, yes. You know, I've heard often. My mother used to say, in fact, she said, your weaknesses are are often your strengths overdone.
Mm.
What do you think about that? So, I mean, I hear about the importance of knowing our strengths, utilizing our top five on a daily basis. But do you think there's a notion of overdoing any particular strength and that being not to our benefit?
Well, it's going back to the concept of dialing up and dialing back. I just think it's everyone doesn't know how to utilize their strength in a way that benefits them. And so I get, you know, what your mother is saying because it can be to your detriment if you don't understand how to use your strengths properly. And that's the whole point of the concept of strengths-based living is knowing how to leverage them in a way that gives the ultimate results that you're looking for. How can I be my most productive self? I may have to tap into strength number 6 for me instead of tapping into strength number 3, which is strategic. You don't need a strategic plan right now. I just need to work on this particular goal.
Mhm. So again, can you walk us through? And there are several people. Hello, people. Thank you for tuning in. And I want to kind of do a little bit of a rewind for people who just recently joined. So Dr. Walker, now tell us, what is the process for, first determining our strengths, and then once we determine what our top 5 strengths are, then what do we do with that information? Kind of walk us through the process.
It all depends on your setting in terms of what you decide to do with them. Oftentimes people are introduced to the whole concept of the strengths-based assessment based on, their affiliation with work, with an organization, if it's in a college course. And so sometimes people just give the assessment and people learn their strengths. Going the extra mile to utilize them, to keep them, because I hear oftentimes individuals say, I took that years ago and I have the book somewhere. Knowing them and aiming them. So naming them
right
and aiming them are 2 different things.
Yeah.
And so the process should be, even if you're taking it with an organization, is everyone take the assessment, whether it is something that the organization does on their own, or if they bring someone like me in to administer the assessment. And then have someone come in to teach them, a Gallup certified strengths coach. It would have to be a certified strengths coach to come in and walk them through the process of understanding each strength, the top 5, what they mean. I normally work with individuals, regardless of the size. I make sure that there's time one-on-one for people to ask questions, to become more familiar with their individual strengths. So after they take the assessment, understanding their strengths. And then after that, a process. I always encourage organizations to have a process of keeping strengths before them. So typically when I go in to work with organizations, I always make sure that people have like a little frame with their strengths that they can leave on their desk. If I say, stick it up on your refrigerator, put it, on your desk, put it as a screensaver, whatever you need to do, but they always need to be in front of you. I love when I get an email from someone and their strengths are in their signature line. That means that they're always tapping into their areas of strength and they always acknowledge them. It also is a conversation starter, so you can get to know more about the strengths of your coworkers. And so it helps build community when so that's the whole process of naming it and claiming it. But aiming it is going through a process. Whether you get individual coaching or it's a process of corporate coaching as a team, it is essential to live a strengths-based life to have ongoing training and resources that will help you remember and be reminded of your strengths constantly, to hone in on those areas.
See that, I think, and thank you so much for explaining that process, because I think listening to you, there's some missing pieces that occurred for me. I took it with my organization, like I mentioned back in 2015. We got a full report on all of our strengths, and it included the top 5. But what was missing is kind of that one-on-one, that explanation as to what each of those strengths meant to the individuals who took the assessment. And I think it would be very helpful to have a coach like yourself to then say, okay, given your role within this organization, this is how you can best leverage those strengths.
Right.
I think that's the critical piece. But I am very happy to have taken it. I have since independently done the research on what those top 5 things mean. Again, I'm a maximizer, positivity, developer, futuristic, and connectedness. I went, and Gallup does provide the definitions for those. So I read that, I read the report, but I did a deeper dive, just looking for more information, just so I could have a deeper understanding into what those things meant and how I could apply them. So, but I think it would be so helpful to be able to talk to a coach about what those things mean, and to have some dialogue around that. So how can we, outside of the workplace, how can we apply and integrate this information when we talk about creating a vision
Mm-hmm.
for our life, creating that vision? How can we integrate our strengths and knowledge of them into creating a vision for our life? And I suspect that we can do that at any stage in
Right.
life, because we're always looking to become a better version of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a bit about that, if you could.
But I think, we have the ability to do it at any stage, but I think it really happens when you understand the areas that you're strong in. Oftentimes when I start a coaching journey with an individual, we work on strategic planning, because once they know the areas of strength, then they can start to map out, okay, this is what I really want to do.
And strategic, are you looking at multiple years with that? When you say you work on strategic planning, it's like, okay, this is what we're looking at over the next 5 years.
We look at short-term and long-term goals. So we start with, the next 6 to 12 months. And then we look at the next 1 to 3 years, and we look at 3 to 5. It just depends on, where they are and how far down the road they want to look. But I normally start with short-term goals. Let's talk about those. And let's list them out. And I always ask for 3. People can give me at least 3, because if you ask for too many, people, it becomes, people will have the tendency to overthink it. And so if we start out with those 3 goals, then we can build on that and then move towards long-term goals. And I think knowing your strengths, well, no, not that I think, I know, knowing your strengths and understanding how to leverage them, then people are more inclined to understanding what they want to do, because they know and they've tapped into, okay, this is how this particular talent connects with my area of strength. And so it unlocks some things for people. Strengths, when people receive their assessment of strengths, it's like an aha moment for many people. And it unlocks a world of possibility, because when you understand the areas of your strength and you receive the assessment results, it gives you additional information, and also gives you some action items as well. If you've ever received your results and you look at the feedback that Gallup provides you, I always recommend people download the app and get the information so that they have it at their fingertips, and they can go back and look over the top 5 and see what are some areas that I may need to what some action steps do I need to take in order to be more productive in this area. So that aha moment is really pivotal for people.
It is. I definitely had my aha moment. Again, I took it in 2015. So that's been a bit. It's been about 8 years now. Do we need to ever reassess? We're constantly evolving as individuals. Is it time for me to do a reassessment?
Yeah, I think it's by choice. Okay. The only reason I took it again was because when I was going into coaching, I really wanted to see if there was any change. Mine were ordered differently, but they really hadn't changed much. So context was high for me. And I believe, I always say, your strengths are ordered oftentimes based on your context of life. So there was not a dramatic change for me from the first time I took it in 2013 and when I took it again in 2017. Mine were 4 years apart. They were still, my top 5 was still within my top 10, but they were ordered differently. And so learner was still in my top 5, maximizer, strategic was still in my top 5, achiever, but again, context was a little bit higher. Like context is now number 7 or 8 for me, but I was in research mode when I was taking it the first time. I was looking at it through a lens of a doctoral student.
I see.
So when I took it again, I was looking at it through the lens of a professional in college administration. So of course, I'm taking in information, and input was number one for me.
Sure. So we mentioned, talk about it, viewers, that amongst the many hats that Dr. Walker wears, she is a pastor as well. And when looking at that and knowing that, it made me think, what factor does one's faith have into creating a strengths-based life?
Right. Not a pastor, ordained minister.
Ordained minister.
Right.
Ordained minister. Thank you for the correction. Ordained minister.
Yes.
Um,
But I think there is no, large distinction in terms of, where we are with our strengths and our faith. Our faith is our core belief, what we believe, what we are true to, what we understand. There's even one of our strengths is belief. One of the 34 is belief. And I think it's important to understand that knowing where you're strong plays a part in your faith, and we teach and we preach that from a ministry perspective is becoming stronger by building up our faith, by speaking positive words, by speaking words of life, by speaking words that bring positive energy. I'm trying to meet people wherever their faith is. And so I think it's important to understand strength enhances our faith journey. For any of us who are believers, who understand, that when I know where I am strong in a particular area, if I know my top 5, I can understand how to speak life into myself and how to live in a more positive and a productive way, which most of our faiths teach us, is to live life in a positive and a more excellent way.
Yes. Wonderful. What if people don't have access to Gallup, or is there any other way that people can find out their top 5 strengths?
Yeah.
Or is Gallup the way?
No, people can go directly to the Gallup website and take the assessment. So it could be at their fingertips. But knowing how to understand it better, it would require a coach. I mean, they could go on their own fact-finding journey. It's not hidden from anywhere. They could go to gallup.com and go to sources. Right. And find any of the resources. When I start the journey, because I don't want anybody to think, everything has to come through me. I want them to know if this is a journey that they are interested in beginning. And so I encourage them to go to the Gallup website, look at the assessment, see if they want to take the assessment to learn their top 5. If they want to take the assessment that's a little bit more expanded and learn their top 34. There are other resources. I had people to come to me and say, I took the manager's strengths test. There's one specific for manager. Can you coach me on these? So people oftentimes go find the resources and information on their own, and then they come because they want to know more. They want more assistance and help on aiming those strengths in the areas where they want to have more positive results.
Excellent. I want people to know how. Well, we'll save that toward the end.
Okay.
But I'm curious about couples.
Okay.
And maybe I'm being a little selfish. I'm coming up on 20 years married, and I'm thinking, should I have my husband take the strengths finders, and can that have an effect, a positive effect on our marriage? Not that we need a lot of work, but hey, there's always room for improvement, right? And thinking about other couples out there, how can couples use a strengths-based approach to having a more fulfilling life together?
The funniest thing happens to me when I'm coaching individuals. They'll say, my spouse or my partner needs this. I have coached a lot of couples.
Have you?
I have. I've had that experience. And so it just depends on, you know, the couple or what they're wanting, but I have experienced this quite a few times where couples will, where one of the person of the couple out of the two will be enjoying their coaching experience so much and want their spouse to tap into this, become assessed, and start their coaching journey. So it is common.
Yes, yes.
And then I'll get, and so it's a funny, I'll ask a question and they'll say, well, you know their strengths. I do.
Yes.
Everything is kept in confidence, you know, things of
Yes.
that nature, but it is a fun journey. And I do.
Yes. And, you know, and I guess it helps with, it's all about understanding, right?
It is.
And you just have a deeper understanding, and it probably brings about those aha moments that you were talking about earlier, like, oh, that's why he does this, or that's why he approaches things in that way.
Right.
And with that understanding, you can just kind of better navigate, you know, within the relationship.
Right.
You know, understanding just breeds so much more in terms of compassion and everything. So yeah, I think I might, Ari, I know you're tuning in. You might need to take that, go to Gallup.com. Take that assessment.
Yeah.
No, but
you know, and that is something that is, I think about, you know, couples taking it, teams taking it. I think it's important for as many people as possible to have access to it, especially whether you're working in, you know, small group settings with your employees, with teams, people working on projects. They can understand why, oh, this is why this person on my project management team responds like this. Okay, I see your husband says count me in. So he's ready to take it. But I've had clients where I've coached their adult children. And so like it's been a family affair before. But it's great because they see the benefits of understanding. But I also encounter a lot of people who are coming to a crossroads and they're about to make a career change. And so I enjoy working with individuals because they utilize and leverage their strengths to start considering if they're going to do a second career, if they're entering a new space. We do prep for new job interviews. You know, just a lot of different things that come about during the coaching journey because they tapped into their strengths and they want to expand and build.
And that's what leads me to what I was kind of chomping at the bit to ask you earlier, but I said, no, let me just let them wait it out a little bit more before I get to this.
Okay.
How can companies and organizations contact you, Dr. Walker, to, you know, those interested in getting the strengths coaching? How can they contact you? And if you can tell us a little bit, if there's anything more that you want to tell us about your services.
Okay. Sure. They can reach me by going to my website, www.wvconsultinginc.com.
Okay.
And W Consulting is my handle for all of my social media websites. I mean, my social media sites. That's on LinkedIn, that is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of them. And so at WV Consulting Inc. And then my website is wvconsultinginc.com. And they can send me a direct email at lwalker@wvconsultinginc.com. And I'm also on the Gallup website. So, you know, especially with individuals, and I have on there that I do remote coaching, I do in-person coaching, whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, Central, Midwest, wherever I fly. And so, and I have a lot of virtual clients. So people can reach me also by going to the coaching directory on Gallup.com and going through that website as well. And my email and website is on there. So people have sent me messages directly from the Gallup website.
Oh, wonderful. So there are multiple channels, everyone. You've got all of the contact information. you have me so interested. I have a feeling you're going to be hearing from me again outside of this interviewing space
I look forward to it.
for some strengths coaching.
Okay.
But is there anything else, Dr. Walker, that you'd like to share with us about creating a strengths-based life? Anything that you haven't covered yet that you'd like to share?
You know what? I just think it is the best thing since sliced bread. No,
I like that endorsement.
I fell in love with strengths-based living, the strengths-based assessment. I teach it. I live by it. I think it is something that is essential to my daily life. If it was not something that I didn't do every day, I wouldn't preach and teach it like I do, but it is. I wake up in the morning reading articles because I want to know information. And I always say my input is always on 100.
Yes.
I think it is important for people to know where their area lies and all of the areas, not just one particular area, but all of their top 5 or their top 10. You know, it helps enhance your everyday life. And it's so important to live a life where you can thrive and where you can do the things that you enjoy and be able to create, to achieve goals, and to accomplish the things that you set out to do. And the way to do that is tapping into your strengths, naming them, claiming them, and
Aiming
them
them.
goals.
Yes. Awesome. Dr. Walker, thank you so much for this positively. This is life-changing information that you provided with us. So appreciate your being here and sharing your knowledge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Talk About It family, for tuning in. Please be sure to tune in the same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, for my Talk About It live session with Dr. Renee Williams. She is an organizational leadership expert and a licensed clinical counselor. She's going to be joining me to discuss how to be resilient, which, Dr. Walker, I think is a great follow-on to tonight's discussion. And that what you shared. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Walker, and thank you, Talk About It family, for tuning in.
Thank you for having the joy.
Take care. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe to our Talk About It YouTube channel and turn on notifications. Also, check us out on our social media. Hope to see you next time.